Yeah, let's wait. Oh, we're ready for people. Rising. Доброго дня всім. Я пропоную почекати кілька хвилин, бо бачу, додаються ще люди. Через 2 хвилини починаємо. Окей. Всім доброго дня. Ми бачимо, що трошки вже зібралось людей. Я думаю, що ще додадуться, але ми точно будемо запис мати для тих, хто спізнився. Для тих, хто мене не знає, мене звати Ігор Бартків, я працюю в Лондонській торгово-промисловій палаті, займаюся українськими проектами. Сьогодні в нас дуже цікава людина, цікавий захід. Ми маємо пана Ендрю Марсдена, людину з величезним досвідом маркетингу і не тільки. Зразу забігаючи наперед, всі будуть мати шанс задати запитання. Прошу піднімати руку, а ще краще писати в чат, щоб ми могли підготовити відповідь. Ендрю зараз нам спробує розказати, поділитися своїм досвідом і розказати своє бачення, як українські компанії, як українські підприємці повинні пробувати, принаймні, позиціонувати себе на британському ринку. Отже, so, the floor is yours, Andrew.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome from a very rainy, wet London. But it's lovely to be able to speak to you today. It's, I suppose, in extraordinarily difficult times that it's good news to hear that the Ukrainian economy, the GDP, is back in growth, which is a blessing from very, very difficult 18 months ago, and that inflation is now back in sort of around 3%. So now is the time, I think, when a lot of confidence is actually returning, particularly in retail lending and in growth opportunities. So there couldn't really be a better time for us to talk today. I'm going to talk about marketing and at 3 different levels, because whether this is you're running your own business in Ukraine, or whether you're actually talking about exporting and whether you're a large business or a small business, certain principles of marketing apply always. And in my experience, and I've been around 40 odd years in the marketing world, I know I'm only 20, but it's I'm just well experienced. It's usually one of the biggest issues. And certainly when I was fortunate to join Igor and another person coming over to Ukraine last January, and we visited Kyiv and Lviv, and it's nice to see someone from the Lviv chamber online, that it was one of the issues that continually came into our discussions at every level. It doesn't matter whether it was about physical product or it was about services. The issue is, how do we start to rebuild and build a business, and how do we actually start thinking certainly about international? But I'm deliberately going to start with a discussion about what you do pre-execution of your business, pre your ideas, because I think the old adage of running a business, any business, it's 80% about cash management and 20% about marketing. All the rest is stuff. Now, being a marketing person, I of course agree absolutely with that, particularly with our accounting friends, because I trained as an accountant, but I have certain views on the profession, which I will share with you as we go through. But anyway, so let's start at the beginning of the presentation.
Sure.
So, as I said, marketing is really what this is about. It's going to be split into, sorry, next one. That's where the slide changes. I'm going to talk about what the key objective of marketing is, and then I'm going to talk about some of the core concepts, almost like an introduction to marketing. And I know there are fellow marketing professionals online, so I apologise for teaching grandmother to suck eggs. I'm going to talk briefly about marketing in larger businesses, and then really what I would recommend as an approach for marketing in smaller businesses, and then we can have a very open question time. I'm conscious that some of the things I'm going to talk about are repetitive, but they are repeated because they're so basically important to running a business. So people often say to me, well, what's marketing all about? Well, I always say the key objective of marketing is actually to build and manage brands. Now, I'm going to go on to explain what this is, but let me just, in our everyday life, we don't buy products. We buy brands. We buy things with a name, things with a reputation. And in my experience, too many people, particularly in smaller businesses, and indeed some people in large businesses, think they're just selling products. It's simply not true. They're trying to build and manage brands because brands are really important. Now, if I was talking in a finance community and they say, what's a brand? I mean, I always say, simply, it's the most valuable thing that a company owns. And what is it? And this is very much into marketing speak. It's a deliberately created bundle of benefits that solve your target market's perceived problems and their stated desires. So the bundle of benefits, of course, includes the brand name. So if I was to say to you, BMW or Rolls-Royce or Ferrari, your name is automatically going to think about that concept. There's then the product, which may have a range of versions, the image that you created for the brand, its reputation, absolutely key, which is built up many times over many years. And I very often work on brands which may be several hundred years old. One of my clients for many years was Lanson Champagne. You can't just change the reputation of Lanson Champagne. It's in the design elements and a whole range of other things, which I will go on to discuss. So brands are important to three different interest groups, very important to consumers, because they're a promise and it's the promise of quality and the performance, for which typically we are happy to pay a price premium because we know it's going to work. And if you consistently deliver that promise over time, that builds trust, and that trust builds both loyalty and advocacy. People will say, buy whatever, a Rolls Royce, should we wish, because it's brilliant and it's status driven and it works and, you know, all that sort of stuff. They're also incredibly important to the trade, because brands really are more than half the volume in all but the most commoditized of categories, and they're about 75% of the value, if not more, in other categories. And strong brands are needed by the trade because they guarantee customer demand. Because we're suppliers, we give the trade promotional money. Very often, although we talk about payment terms, we're talking about providing them with interest-free credit. So warning to anybody in the food business in Ukraine that wants to come to the UK, most of the major grocers pay on 120 days credit. So they're buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling and buying and selling, and then they pay you for the first lot. So management of cash and money is hugely important. Of course, as brand owners, we give them free marketing advice and commercial help. And very importantly, they don't have to think of a stream of ongoing innovation, because that's what we do. As manufacturers and suppliers, we constantly reinvent the products that we deliver and give it to them. And they're very important to shareholders. If you look at the sort of world of a shareholder, because brands earn price premiums, better margins, you can actually defend your brand by reinvesting that in more advertising or reduced price or more activity. Because the demand is less volatile, you can forecast more accurately, particularly on cash. Because you grow to a scale, you get scale economies because you can buy stuff cheaper. And this is a very, very technical point. Because you're advertising all the time, you are advertising in cheap times as well as expensive times, so it's an economically efficient product. And very importantly, brands can be sold and bought internationally without having to move factories around. So when a famous German company bought, I've got this fetish about Rolls-Royce too, they bought the Rolls-Royce brand, that was on a sheet of paper. They didn't move the factory, they bought the right to the brand. And of course, if you're an investor, that significantly increases risk. Now, the accountants on the line really struggle to measure the value of brands because of what's called historic cost accounting conventions. They can only put the value of the brand on a balance sheet if it actually was, if the company paid more than the physical assets when they bought it. No problem with investors, they don't. They pay significantly more for shares in companies that own strong brands. You buy a share in Coca-Cola, 90% of it will be an intangible asset. It's not, you're not buying factories or whatever, and more than half the market value of the world's stock markets, which is about 75 trillion pounds, is now accounted for by intangible assets. It's 75% of the American stock market and about 60% of the UK stock market. So investors don't have a problem with this, but accountants do. So I'm quite happy to answer any brief questions on that, just for clarity. But if not, I'll continue.
Піднімайте руку, якщо хтось хоче запитати. I think we...
No, that's fine. I'll crack on. Thank you.
People wasn't ready for the quick Q&A session.
Yeah. No, we'll have a proper Q&A session at the end on anything you want and any specific businesses that you want. Okay. Right. So what is marketing? What are the core concepts in marketing? Well, there are thousands of definitions of marketing, but in my view, the most important is about the creation and the retention of consumers at a profit. Now, it's both a function of business, marketing is a function within business, but it's also a philosophy of business. And it's about the technical, obviously, the process of finding a target market, connecting with it, raising awareness of what you're offering them. But it's also a philosophy of successful businesses drive consumer delight. And the most important principal concept in marketing is targeting. Plato said, one man can only do one thing well, and if he tries to do more, he will fail to do anything. So one of the core elements, the principles of marketing, is finding a target market. So markets are huge. If you talk about transport, then you may talk about cars, then you may talk about, hybrid cars. You segment the market down and down and down until you can define something that actually you can meet. And technically, in the marketing world, my colleagues will know that we define that market by demographics, which is the economic factors, where people are, how much they earn, by geodemographics, which is where they live, and by psychographics, which is how they think. But I'm not going to go into that today because we'll talk about it in much less technical terms. So one of the principal roles of marketing people, which is why a lot of companies find them very irritating, is that their job is to bring the realities of the outside world into the company. Their job is to be real, to bring in data and so on. And very often, it's the fine details of your product or your service that's going to help you identify your target market. So you need to research the market. Who are your likely competitors? What are they offering? You've got lots of ideas of what you, quote, know is right. Well, you better ask a consumer whether they agree. Why are they in the market? What do they need? Why are they buying similar products? And importantly, why are they dissatisfied with some of those products? Now, again, this is a bit technical, but it's the old 4 Ps, as it's called, and this is how to help you, in your mind, separate out designing this bundle of benefits that make up a brand. The first thing is obvious. It's the product itself or the service. What's its technical specification? What's its performance standards? What service do you deliver? The next element is pricing. Now, pricing is very much a science. It is not an art. So there's obvious things like, is it cheap or is it premium priced? You've got the value for money issue, and particularly in international marketing, the thorny issue of exchange rates, buying ahead and so on. The next one is slightly weird, because by place, we marketing people mean distribution. Is it in just general distribution? Do you limit it? So years ago, I remember going to Germany with Porsche, and they were complaining that their market in the States hadn't grown enough. It had only grown 47%. So they were going to reduce the number of effectively suppliers where you could buy it from. Is it going to be direct? You're going to do all this by post and delivery? Are you going to be via wholesale? Is it all going to be online? And the 4th P is about promotion. Now, it's true that an awful lot of people think marketing is only about marketing communication, about advertising and promotion and trade act. It isn't. Marketing is about all of those 4 Ps. Marketing define the product, they define the price, they define where it's going to be sold, and they define how it's going to be sold. And, which channels of advertising you use, all the, loyalty promotions and trade discount, all of that stuff is only one. It's not a small part, it's quite a large part, but you've got to get the first 3 Ps right first. So let's say we're in a situation where you've identified a likely target market, you've got a likely product, you've got an idea of what you want to create in terms of awareness of your product, and you've got an idea of how to promote it. Now, this is where the rubber hits the road. You need then a detailed business plan before you do anything. And, we call these strategic business plans. And you need to plan ahead, you need to set goals, and you need to decide how best to achieve it. It is not, and I've worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, it's not about just your gut instincts. You've got to be strategic. You've got to consider all aspects of business before you take action. And obviously lots of people might have already got products and so on, but think this way. And you've got to know the reason behind what you're doing. Why are you doing all these things? So key questions you've got to know the answer to. What are you really selling? That may sound a stupid question. But for example, I was talking to an IT business recently, and their entire marketing activity was all about being sustainable. They use sustainable electricity, they use, they didn't use paper, they use recycles, etc., etc. And I said to this guy, how many of your customers actually buy that? And he was astonished. Because what he was really offering was 7 days a week, impeccable service, 24 hours a day. And when he asked his customers, they were buying the service that he provided. They didn't give anything for the sustainability message he'd been selling. So next question, who are you selling it? Sorry, who are you selling it to? Now, this depends on what you're in. Are you selling it to a business? Is it about operations? Is it about, selling to a factory manager? Are you selling to a consumer? Are you selling to the trade to sell to a consumer? Because each of those stages in the sales process, you need to be very clear about. What do you want? Why are they going to buy it? What are your unique benefits? Where will you sell it? We've got a question which I'll answer in a minute. Are you on the high street? Are you use distributors? How will you sell it? What is your sales story to both the trade? Why should they stock it? And to consumers, why should they buy it? And obviously price. So is it cost plus, or is it sort of market price? Pricing at what the market will bear. And if you're in international markets, the market price is very much where you have to be. Because every market has a different competitive set, every market has a different price set. And then typically the content of a strategic plan is a business overview where you put into words what your business is about. What are you really good at? How would you intend to serve your customers would be your mission. How? Your vision, what you want a business to become in the future. Very often people don't think about this. But what products and services will you offer? And very often define versus what your competitors are doing. And what's your value proposition? Why should they buy your product, both the trade and the consumer? Now, it begins with a situation analysis, and that's gathering data and information about your environment. Now, there are two major ways of doing this. One's called, and many people have heard of it, the SWOT analysis, which is about listing the things that your internal things, internal strengths and weaknesses, and the external opportunities and threats that you face. And the other one is a bit more highbrow, which is called a PESTEL analysis, which is looking at the political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal issues which positively or negatively affect your business. So, for example, if you were talking about coming to the UK, it's very important that, there's going to be tariff-free activity from Ukraine, tax-free trading until 2029. That would be a typical economic and legal situation. But, the fact that most things imported into the UK, most contracts by preference, 80–90% of contracts, commercial contracts, and under English contract law, means you've got to be aware of all those sort of things. You've got to apply, needless to say, within Europe and within the UK, to the quality standards that the receiving country has. So these things are important. Don't walk into them blind and find that your product is returned from the customs because it's not compliant. And again, look at your competitors. So you then produce a marketing plan. Very clear about what you're going to sell, in what numbers, what format, how many to a case, or what your service is. And you decide how you're going to raise awareness of your product. It's about advertising or sales promotion. Which channels are you going to use? Which communication channels? How much money have you got to spend? And very importantly, timings. What do you and by when? I was talking to someone today He's in a highly seasonal business. He's in name tags. He does name tags for, you know, kids' presents and all that. All his business is in 3 months in the year. And he goes from 2 employees to 60 employees overnight. If you're very seasonal, I used to be in the soup business. If it didn't rain and was miserable on the 1st of September, I used to cry because all soup is sold in the UK really between sort of September into January. And how are you going to persuade the trade to stock your product? Shall we keep going or answer that question?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a question which is about Nepalese rugs. In particular. Right, okay. Now, this is an interesting one. So this company are selling Nepalese rugs. And they're talking about their trademark officer in the Ukraine, new to Europe, the UK in particular. How to persuade potential customers to perceive us and our products, which are not equal to the big brands, but whatever. So the key observation I would make here is that your brand, whatever your company name is Nepalese rugs. Because I happen to collect rugs. They're a weird sort of hobby, and I've collected over many years. And you will know that people who collect rugs are a bit weird, like me. You know, knowing it's from Nepal, knowing the thread count, knowing it's handmade, who makes it, the colours that are used, all of that sort of stuff. And there are lots of rug dealers in, say, the UK who will want to know all that. So that's a case when you are describing Nepal as the brand, rather than what you do. And what you are adding to it is your ability to select well. You may be delivering good value, but above all with rugs, it's the quality of the work and the quality of the materials used, the fact you know these people, and there's a direct connection between the rug owner and the people in Nepal that produced it. So we'll come on to maybe a bit more.
This person wants to follow up.
Oh yes, of course.
Julia, you can.
Hello, can you hear me well?
I can, yes, thank you.
My name is Julia. It's me who sent that message about the handmade rugs. I'm a co-owner and CEO of that company. We're called Rugs and Rugs. And thank you for paying attention to my question. It's very interesting because I work with UK for about 12 years now. And I see a lot of the potential dealers, with the rug dealers. And it's great that you are deeply into the topic on the rugs and the density of the notes and so on. But when I come with that technical approach, showing the density of notes, the quality, the dyers, the natural dyers for the fibers, blah blah blah, all the people they say that they hear it every single time, and we are selling not not just the product, but we are selling something with a bigger value. We're selling emotions, and it's more like the it's luxury goods, and the selling of the luxury goods is not the same as selling to like bread and butter goods.
I understand exactly. What I'm going to do, the very last slide, I'm going to go through the rest if you don't mind, but I'll come back to this.
Sure, thanks.
Show you the very last slide that I do on my presentation may answer part of that question. Then when we get into Q&A, I'll start talking about the difference of luxury goods versus non-luxury goods, if that's okay. Because I don't want to sort of get too sidetracked too early. Is that okay?
Okay, sure, thanks. Thank
you very much.
We'll come back to this later then. Shall we go?
Yeah, please. So very briefly, and again, this is for very large businesses, how does it work? Typically, the structure will be you'll have a marketing director. You'll have a bunch of people in very large companies that look after the brands. You'll have people who look after innovation, the innovation team. You'll have people who look after consumer and trade insights and market research. You'll have category people that look after the relationship with the trade, marketing services, and that may include your social media handling and so on, and probably corporate relations, PR. So typically when my last marketing job as, excuse me, as marketing director, I had about 210 people in that group. And my marketing budget was about £90 million. But that's a very large company. But the only reason I've shown it is that within marketing, you need to think about each of those different elements, whether you're a massive group or a small group. And I'll talk about small group marketing in a minute. Obviously, one of the key issues is how you actually communicate with your target market. Now, that might be and I apologize for these acronyms. The ATL is above the line, the BTL is below the line, and this came out, sorry to say, the 1950s with Procter & Gamble. And above the line refers to sort of external stuff like radio and TV and whatever. And below the line it's sort of less targeted stuff, social media, public relations, things that are not to do with this marvelous idea of advertising to the consumer. Then, of course, you've got direct. You're going to use direct stuff. You're going to try and build up a list of people. You're going to use telephone. You're going to use email and so on. The definitions, which I have to say, I don't think really apply these days, and I come on to explain why. But if you're talking to marketing people from a traditional marketing background, they will understand this straight away. And typically, you'll have a massive range of agencies. I won't cover all of these, but if you imagine a large company like that, in my last role, I had 127 agencies working on my range of products. So we had 27 brands, not products, 27 brands, and we had well over 100 agencies. Now, most people wouldn't even start here. But again, it's just an indication of some of the things about sampling. Do you do coupons? How do you do public relations? All the digital stuff, because everyone thinks marketing is about digital these days, which it isn't, and so on. But I won't go on about that, and I won't ask questions because we'll go. So if I talk about marketing for smaller businesses, my advice is adopt the concepts, but keep it very simple. So how do you begin? Well, there are a couple of phrases here which are current. We've talked about entrepreneurs before. Everyone knows what entrepreneurs are, people with a new idea. And the great thing about entrepreneurs is they develop lots of markets. But my experience of entrepreneurs is they have one key skill, and that is they fail and then get up and have another go. Because most just ideas fail because they've not done the pre-preparation that we've talked about. Emerging people are trying to build brands. Rather ridiculously, we call them brandpreneurs. And you go to lots of conferences where investment people are trying to find brandpreneurs. But one thing I'd say, and I'll say it now and I'll say it at the end, is first, irrespective of what your ambitions are, first you must run a good business. You've got to be very honest about the strategic direction. You've got to be honest with yourself. Are you running a lifestyle business? Or are you trying to build a unicorn, which is a business that's worth £1 billion when it floats? Most small businesses are run as lifestyle businesses. They may eventually be sold, but they're not. They're run to actually dealing with building a family business, growing stuff, being interested in something. Very few people, including lots of people who build IT businesses, and call them unicorns. It's interesting that the vast majority of unicorns launched in the States are now failed miserably, and the actual shareholders have actually got very little back from it. Be very clear, secondly, about what you're actually about, what you're going to do. Be truthful with yourself. This is what I call a Sunday evening conversation with yourself. What are you really good at, and what are you not good at? What are you really trying? What are your goals? How much money have you got to do this? What are your pain points? Things that are are outside your competence, where you're going to need help. Be honest with it, and then find someone who can help you with it. Don't try and sort of read up on it and have a guess. And also set smart objectives. Now, again, it's a sort of phraseology, but be specific. Try and make them measurable. Above all, be realistic. Make them achievable within the timescale you're talking about. So we'll go to the next one. Thank you. And then you've got to identify what we would call a value proposition. And we'll come on to this, but it doesn't matter whether it's rugs or software. What's the compelling reason for your customers to buy from you? Sell solutions to problems. Don't sell benefits. Sorry, you're selling benefits, not features. So it's really important that you know some of the things we talked about, like the facts about in the rug case, natural dyes and all the rest of it. It's a sort of build-up, it's a feature, but the real benefit is holding something of remarkable beauty created by a real craftsperson. So that's the real benefit, and the benefit of ownership of something beautiful. Those features are support characteristics. With a car, traveling somewhere in style or whatever it is. So you've got to define your audience. Who is your ideal customer? Where do they live? Where do they shop? What are their pain points? And how do you get your message to them? And then, of course, you need to start on your communication idea. Remember, you need customer communication to the trade, and you need consumer communication if you're actually involved in the consumer. Customers, it's either, buy this, buy this to use it yourself, or you actually talk about the consumer and you're talking to persuade the trade to stock it in order to buy it. Use your brand logo and everything. Very much make sure your brand promise is in everything you talk about. Don't change subject. A brand promise is repeated every day, forever. So you may well, in the UK, internationally, there's a brand called Persil Automatic. It's a clothes washing product. For 80 years, they've said Persil washes whiter. You repeat it and repeat it. You'll be bored to death with saying the same thing. Your customers aren't. If you do it for about 20 years, they'll sort of get used to doing it. And then what tone of voice are you going to use? It's about being professional. It's about being friendly in your communication and your words. Are you an expert? Is it sheer confidence? Those in the know, know. And then, of course, put your selling decks together in that way. And then, very importantly, these days, your website. Get a good website. Ideally a .com, but there are obviously others. Get your hosting secure, somewhat proper that you don't have to worry about. Design your site. Now, it's almost ridiculous to contemplate now, but I was in a business the other day and they designed their new sites so they were laptop friendly. You must design them so they are mobile friendly, because 90% of people will access your website on a mobile. Your landing page is key. So if you can have a brilliant page that's one page, you don't need, again, this same silly company had got different websites. One was 7 pages long. One was nearly 300 pages long. No one cares. Produce readable content, visual content. And I won't talk about SEO, search engine optimization, which makes uses keywords, but it's really important. So if you're the first person to look on a website, you are likely to get nearly a third more people looking at it than if you're further down. Then, then select the business media. That might be email marketing, building up a list. Always have strong social media, but relevant and interesting, not just rubbish. You can obviously go to events, lots of people do. Word of mouth. Now, special point here, deal with customer complaints, turn them into advocates. Every person who gets bad customer service will tell everybody they meet, all their friends, you're not going to believe with that. And it's a real problem. Great customer service, you retain them and turn them into advocates. And the language I put there is generate potential improvement points. Look at the people who don't like you on social media. Why don't they like you? What they're complaining about, and deal with it. And try and generate positive customer reviews on something like Trustpilot and so on, because that is today's word of mouth. And this is the age-old issue of, yeah, but we can get it cheaper and we get it faster. Well, yes, but you may not have the right product, and this can be the result. So again, remember, business is all about 80% cash and 20% marketing. It's about seeking customer delight, putting this stuff together. And it definitely doesn't mean to say, be the cheapest in the market. Thanks.
Thank you, Andrew. I believe we have a few questions now.
Yes, indeed.
So, there's a question related to basically marketing in the UK for industrial wooden packaging.
Oh, right, okay. Well, it's not particularly a strong area for me, but there's a lot of development in palletization, and I'm trying to think of the company's name. If you look at a company called Gripple, who I visited not that long ago, they do a lot of stuff on pallets, on returnable stuff and reusable stuff. As you know, most people, certainly in the UK, were using PET or whatever, but you know, the known palletizations, because when you've got vehicles, you're obviously, as you know, you're working on what we call columnar modularity, which is how much stuff you can get in a lorry, and therefore all that sort of maths needs to be done. And it seems to me that because you're actually using wood which is reusable, that's a great advantage. But you're probably going to have to go directly. You won't do it by cold calling. You're going to have to go directly to the people who either provide check pallets or whatever, who use check pallets, and go and talk to them, because you're talking about something that is it's so massive and everyday using for these transport companies that they're not going to change very easily. So it's adding your particular value to it. Passive marketing.
But yeah, if I may, sorry, yes, because there was we're also mentioning about LCC.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Yeah. So the chamber, the London chamber, has Ukrainian project. We were one of two UK-based independent organizations having a Ukrainian project. We trying to provide support to Ukrainian companies as we can. So I suggest you contact me personally after this webinar. You can set a call and discuss it more details. But to add to Andrew's word, I would also suggest considering attending professional industry events like trade shows, exhibitions related back to the industry. So definitely find something relevant to you.
Very interesting question about building a brand. New to UK, passive marketing may not be as effective, but it'll take a lot of money to build a good system, etc. So your customers come to you. Maybe better just to make aggressive sales. What do you think is the best sales method? I think this is a really important question. And my advice would be, if you want to go for aggressive selling, you're going to be dealing on price. There is no short answer to selling stuff and building brands if you don't market it properly. And you may not like that answer. I'm sure you don't. But if you're selling, you know, just extra volume and distressed stock and you want to sell it at marginal pricing, fair enough. But if you actually want to build a business, start small, find somewhere that really wants to stock your product and deal with it, and find a much narrower target market, almost like a micro market. But if you come anywhere with a view that you're just going to, aggressively sell, I mean, what does that mean? You're only going to get bought because it's cheap as nothing. So it's a very I know the temptation and I empathise with the question, but think about that very carefully. If there's no reputation, there's no image, you've got no real sales benefit, why would a trader stock it? And why would they sell it on your behalf? Just doesn't work.
Just a quick reminder, in case anyone wants to speak, raise your hands or add something to your questions. So let's move to another one.
Cider manufacturer in UK planning to enter.
In Ukraine, entering UK.
Ukraine entering UK. Special level of consumption. Do you believe Ukrainian origin, etc.? So this is a question about the sort of the use of Ukraine. Now, this is very interesting. So I go to my station every probably two.
Also related to that honey business.
Yes, indeed. I'm going to be very harsh, but I hope you understand. So I go to my station every day, and there's a sandwich shop which is owned by Ukrainians, and I go and chat to them and all this, and on their sign it says, ideas originating in the Ukraine, which is fine. There are two things. At the moment in the UK, and this is why it's a harsh answer, people are very supportive of Ukraine. Because obviously where you are and the different front and the situation with Russia, everyone is at least aware of. The problem at the moment, of course, is with the situation in the Middle East. It's taken a lot of the news off Ukraine, off the headlines, as we would say, and it's all about Palestine and all that sort of stuff. But there's still a body that really wants to support Ukraine. Now, this is where the hard thing comes. You can play on the sympathy vote, which is, oh, we're from Ukraine and wouldn't that be interesting? Or you could say, we're from Ukraine and our cider, our honey, our whatever has these special benefits, and you're not only supporting, local economy, but it tastes great or whatever. Now, going on to cider, one of the issues with cider is very much it's a very, very strong UK-based industry. We have a lot of cider makers, as you will know, hundreds of years worth of growing different apples, etc., etc. And the other problem in the beer business, in the beer business, and I speak as an ex-chairman of the beer business, is that beer and collecting rugs, that's me, is that there's a big movement towards, the good news is upgrading the quality of what people drink, so drinking less are better. But there's also a massive movement towards drinking a lot less, particularly amongst younger people, and the low and no alcohol categories are growing really, really quickly. So what I'm saying to you is, it seems to me that you're best talking about the very special nature of, the delivery of the cider, the Ukraine apples, where they're grown, what species, all of that sort of stuff, and then find someone who is interested in doing that. Now, I would actually suggest that somewhere like the big metropolises of, say London or Birmingham or whatever, would be a good place, because there are lots and lots of local distributors who are trying to specialise. And in the UK, lots of pubs will have 10 or 20 varieties, different brands around, because they want to offer that. So a specialist pub or specialist pub chain will add these. So I was chairman of Hofmeister Lager for a number of years when we bought it from Heineken and we relaunched it in the UK. And very wonderfully, it's the best beer in the world for the third year on the trot. But I think it's finding a niche way in with a niche pub chain or niche suppliers that it will be your best way forward.
Okay, I think the gentleman with the previous question is wanting to add some. Yes, just give me a second. Yeah, Artur, you can talk now. Just unmute.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for the great presentation and information. Regarding my question, I have like something to add up, maybe a little context, just so you may answer a bit more clearly in my question. So, for example, like we have a company, we do IT out stuff, and we have built a reputation in Ukraine with some companies, but the question here is they can't actually recommend us to UK customers as we are working like in white label. And customers, they think that those developers, software engineers are working for example, other Ukrainian company. So, and they cannot recommend us like directly. And as we have no presence at UK market, it's really hard to like, we don't have a reputation on UK market, and Ukrainian companies, big companies, they cannot recommend us. So what would you suggest? Like when I'm saying aggressive sales, I meant like kind of cold calling, maybe emails, but I'm not sure if that's working in UK. What would you suggest in our situation?
Yeah, okay. Sorry, I didn't understand that you were white labeling at the moment. So what I think there are lots of companies developing sort of the sort of software type activities and so on that actually are using overseas companies to develop it. So I don't think the concept is not unusual here, but it seems to me that cold calling, I always think, is actually quite a difficult thing to do because the probability of a decent hit rate, i.e. that the customer is looking at exactly that moment for someone like you, is actually not going to, you're going to have 99% failure rate. So I think one of the issues to do there is probably be at conferences and so on. So for example, or be at events in the trade, so you can meet people and go around. So I, until recently, was chairman of an international translation business. We translate both linguistic and culturally for advertisers around the world, 120 countries. Our biggest source, other than personal recommendations, were actually positively attending international events where international marketing people were there and just making them know that that was the service we provided. And it generated some really interesting pieces of business. So that would be, I think just cold calling is not likely to be there. You need to be constantly in the background to create that awareness. Does that answer a bit more of the question?
Yeah, I guess so. So that would be events mostly.
Yeah.
For UK.
I think so. Just be there so that when the customer decides they need you, they've heard of you.
Okay, if in case I'm not able to like personally visit them, maybe online conference is also working.
Yes, yeah. No, I'm not saying don't write to them and let them know and all this sort of stuff, because you can do that. But just ringing out of the blue.
There's a nice sheet for Ukrainian businesses currently. We have around 200,000 Ukrainians in this country recently coming. Many of them having some business background, business ideas in their heads. So many of them, again, open for any kinds of cooperations and partnerships. So if you're not able to leave the country currently, you can find potential partners. We're also running some events for Ukrainian business community in London, offline events. Next will be this Friday. There are few social media groups related to businesses. Yeah, just get in touch with me. left my email in the answers to one of the questions. I can put you in touch with Ukrainian communities. You might find another partner here. Right, another raised hand.
We're on
previous questions.
Yeah, we're on food ingredients.
Oh, sorry, if you don't mind, Julia.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, thank you.
The last question. When I look for the new partners, I usually send a lot of emails, like targeted emails, personalized with the personal greetings, and I use a lot of LinkedIn, which is more effective for me. But let's say 8 out of 10 contacts, they don't reply at all. Some they do reply, or I need to send the reminders, and it's not hard for me to pick up the phone and to make a call. So the question is probably from about the mentality, because let's say when I compare the same scheme of work for the German market, the Germans, they pick up the phones and they make the conversation with me. The Italians, for example, however, they are talkative, they don't want to talk over the phone and they promise to reply to email again and again, and they don't. So what is the best strategy to extend the communication and to catch the proper contact in UK from your point of view?
Right. You're one of those people that annoy me every day. I'm being honest with you. I probably get, I don't know, I may get 100 emails a day, and everybody, certain ones, I end up trashing them all because this sort of so we're very formal in the UK. So over familiarity is a definite no-go. So anyone who addresses me as, dear Andrew, are you thinking of selling your business? Are you doing this? I'm sorry, I'm not interested in that. And please don't send me another one the next day and the one the next day and the one the next day about you didn't respond and this, that, and the other. It's sort of, it's what I would term, it appears to be quite amateur email marketing. It's too formulaic. So I think the cold calling, I mean, I'm one of those horrible people. I get, if I don't get 10 or 15 unsolicited emails a day that are referring to me personally in my company, it would be an unusual day. I just dump them. I haven't got time. So, it seems to me that one of the things when you're dealing with this is to respect the person's time and their level of interest. So bulk email marketing communication is, in my view, a no-no. Comes back to this ability to actually find a target market. And you may find that out from, reading what people have said, at conferences, what they're actually talking about in their news and their PR, the way they advertise and so on. So it's, I would just emphasize the marketing, but get the cultural references right. We're quite a formal culture. And don't take that and oh, by the way, did you read what I sent yesterday, and would you do this, and would you anything that asks me to do stuff when I'm really busy, I haven't got time. And I certainly haven't got time to approach people I'm no interested in who just sort of send me stuff. So that may not be helpful, but I think I would go back to to target as much as you possibly can. And it's make your proposition, the customer proposition we talked about, get that in the first sentence. Don't write me a rambling letter because I have no idea who you are and I'm not interested. But if you write and said, Andrew, would you like to make $1 million? Ring me. Well, I probably still wouldn't, but you know what I mean? At least my imagination.
Thank you. Probably, Andrew, you would like to buy one of our rugs. That's the joke at the offer. Thank you so much.
Well, exactly. Would you like to buy one of the rarest rugs by Nepal? Whatever. Sorry.
We can also place one of those rugs in our lounge. In the middle of the city.
Nice. We do have the 10 out of 10 rugs to be displayed there. We have them in stock.
There are some other people waiting.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Let's move to one of the questions.
We've got one on food ingredients. This is a tough one. This is a food supplier talking about supplying egg powder to the UK market, etc. And obviously potential clients and manufacturers of dough and confectionery. So there's loads of people you could do it for. I think there's two observations. People are very aware these days of ingredients that they put into in the UK. Certainly very aware of ingredients they put into it. We've had one or two issues where you've got food intolerance things, you've got ingredient things, and that sort of sensitized everybody. And people really, companies have to know the background to the production of products that they use, because they have to be confident that that is supportive, it's not exploitative, etc., etc., etc. So are the hens free range? Are they battery hens? All of that sort of stuff. So you've got to have something that is the story behind your product that is reassuring before they even talk to you. And it's probably not going to be based on price, obviously. Then, of course, there are major ingredient suppliers, food wholesalers, and they're the people you probably would need to talk to, unless there is something very specific about your source of your eggs and powder and so on.
Good, thank you. There are two related, one for another from Alexander.
Oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong question.
Yeah, those two.
Yeah, special communication, which UK customers can be reached. B2B business in the field in real estate 3D visualizations.
Customers.
And then, yeah, okay. It doesn't say what the product is.
I mean, it's
Yes,
the same person.
Oh, sorry,
That's the same person.
oh, I do beg
Just
your
two
pardon. There are two questions for the price of one. Essentially, 3D, the whole generative AI and AI and 3D visualizations and whatever is growing really quickly. And one of the situations, and you're in real estate, so I'll limit it to that, is that most certain products sold, houses and whatever, although they're from lots of different companies. So, for example, the biggest biggest company is Countrywide in the UK, and they've got lots and lots of local brands, but they're all members of Countrywide. They will use 2 or 3 websites. And on those websites, everybody in the country goes to the same websites. They'll tell you the value of the house, where it is, and they very often have 3D valuations on that. So you're talking about not lots of individual businesses. You're talking about probably quite a very small number of centralized businesses using 1 or 2 platforms, which are obviously trying to sell you their 3D visualization stuff. So I think it depends whether you're in development or you've actually got a finished product. Sounds like you've got a finished product. And really, it's those sort of people who would routinely use it, because selling houses and properties and even industrial properties is very routine in the UK. It's become very digitized. And there are, certain websites that are used by everybody. You can even go on and find out what your neighbour's house was sold for. And what they've done to it. So it's like being in a spy industry. You just go, oh yeah, well, how much did they pay for that? What have they done? All that sort of stuff. But in terms of that, the visualization side, very complex market. It's growing very quickly. Certainly using Gen AI type stuff. I would think you need to concentrate on those 3 platforms, and people use those sort of 2 or 3 platforms.
And again, I would add some because it's really challenging to set the selling online. Completely online. So if you don't have any interpersonal relations to the potential customers, and as we mentioned a few times before today, it's probably worth to think about attending some professional industry events then just getting some actual contacts, then follow up with emails and online presentations, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the business sell is always more complicated because you've got less potential customers. But you look at, you probably know in the UK, look at a website called Rightmove, R-I-G-H-T, Rightmove. That's typical of what people will be using, and you know, the sort of 3D visualizations wandering around properties and so on.
Right, another one. Dear Andrew, thank you for the presentation. Our company produces homeware, loungewear, and lingerie.
Oh, we're finally getting to it. We've got a lingerie producer and private labels. Okay, this is obviously a producer of lingerie and loungewear and homeware and stuff. Design and manufacturing, and again, private labeling. Private labels are in this sort of area they're quite large markets, so that's a good move. And there is probably I would imagine every major retailer have got their own label, and they obviously in many cases have their own sub-brands. So they develop their own private label brands as brands. One classic would be Marks and Spencer's, who've got their variety of brands and so on, a high street retailer in the UK. But increasingly, a lot of this product is sold online. So you have to remember that the physical connection and touching and feeling and seeing is actually quite difficult now, because as the high street contracts and more product goes online, you have to present it in that sort of way. Now, of course, although there are a limited number of high street retailers, there are lots and lots of people who produce things for them, and indeed all over the world. When I was talking about exploitation strategies on egg powder, it's exactly the same in manufacturing. You know, is it made in China? Is it made in India? How is it done? All that sort of stuff. You've obviously got, I think, a very key benefit in the sense that you know where everything is, where it's come from, and therefore you can approach some of the major users of private label product directly. And that's what I would suggest you do.
If I may ask,
Yeah.
Speaking about private labeling, what would be the best approach for a company like this one to find the first UK customers or partners?
Yeah.
I mean, you know the offer, but they're struggling to get some.
Yeah, I think the issue, let's be honest, most retailers don't produce private label. It's actually the bigger retailers that actually can afford to run their own brands and to manage those things, because your average retailer will just sell brands, and they'll sell brands at different prices, but there'll be brands, because they can't afford to actually spend the time and effort to work developing a brand with someone and sell it. Because with private labels, of course, it's the retailer that's doing the marketing. So again, it may not be an easy answer, but you're probably going to get attention only from people who are the larger retailers, who are very well established. They know exactly how this works. And you're entering into a very professional conversation with them about what you can do for them. But they will be having people knocking at their door all the time. Don't waste your time going to smaller companies, because they don't do it. A lot of smaller companies may in fact buy, you know, cheap brands, but they're not private labeling.
Thank you, Andrew. I think we have one comment related to one of the previous questions about the wood packaging.
Yeah.
It's not pallet, it's frames to assemble box on a pallet.
Okay.
I mean, so as far as I understand, it's like framing on the top.
So same comments about the pallets themselves. So you obviously know, say a CHEP pallet is obviously got to work on those things. CHEP is probably one of the most basic pallet systems that people have. So just for other people who are interested, there's a massive standardization of pallets in the UK. There's probably only 2 or 3 pallet types. And then, of course, you put stuff on top of them, and it's about ease. You've got to work within the structure of a typical truck and so on, which is the Kalima modularity thing I talked about before. But equally, there's a lot of movement in here about reusability and so on. So do have a look at, I say Gripple, they do a lot of stuff in this area. It's a developing area about, cases and sizes that suit. So it's not just about the pallet, it's the boxes and things you put on it that actually move stuff around. Without getting into all the, I don't know enough about the business itself, but if it's, say, about protecting, we'll make something up, fresh vegetables, that's a rather different thing from shipping around stuff in containers, in sub-containers.
And the last one, I believe, for today. So, not the last one. From someone else, tell us an interesting marketing.
An interesting marketing case study. Well, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, actually. This is Heineken bought a brand called Hofmeister in the UK many years ago, essentially to close it down. So in the 70s, it was incredibly popular. It's categorized by a bear and was really quite poor quality. It was, I won't explain the phrase that used to be used at the time, but it was sort of quite weak. And people drank it in huge quantities. And then Heineken bought it to close it down. And then some friends of mine decided to approach Heineken and bought it. And they bought Hofmeister. And so the only thing they got was a sheet of paper that said, "We own Hofmeister." That's literally how they started, two guys. We then got together and we decided to change it from the most important thing, you were talking about branding earlier, the most important thing, anybody in the UK, when you say, "Follow the bear," will go, Hofmeister. Hofmeister wasn't available in the UK for 25 years. But you say, "Follow the bear," oh yes, because it had great advertising, great packaging and so on. Anyway, bought the brand and we decided to premiumize it. So we had it made in Germany. It went from basically dishwasher liquid to a 5.5% alcohol, super high quality. I mean, went from great advertising, rubbish product to hopefully now not a lot of advertising because we haven't got the money, so I empathise with all of that, but we've done some. But the product is brilliant. And I say brilliant because other people tell me it's brilliant. I know it's brilliant. So it's one of the best lager in the world. I think I said for the third time, it's nearly the fourth time. They launched a low alcohol lager, which is interesting for the cider people. That's also been awarded the best low alcohol lager in the world. And they've also got a Weiss beer, all of which are doing brilliantly well. And the strategy was, again, a little bit that I talked about with someone on the earlier questions. We started in London. I mean, everybody wanted it, but we could only service a small geographic area with the level of service that we said we were going to provide, which is brilliant beer, but brilliant service. And we couldn't have got lots of money, so we couldn't actually put lots of fonts on, and we had special fonts design and whatever. So we started small, and we've slowly grown and grown and grown. And at the same time, we also put it online. So a number of the online retailers also took it, and it's grown nicely over the last 6 years now. It's nearly 7 years, actually. And it's doing really well. It's available online. It's available in a number of retailers who are pubs, basically, and nightclubs that want to sell a super premium beer. So again, not drinking a lot of it, but drinking better quality. It works in that context. So that would be, I think, a good example. Fingers crossed. We've had 3 fundraising activities, and they've all been sold out. We're just about to do another one, and we've got some amazing shareholders. So it's a nascent business. It's starting to grow. Another one was, just in that relation, was there's a brand in the UK called J2O. And this is, again, non-alcoholic. I used to run Britvic soft drinks. And I was fed up of, guys going after sport, buying pints of orange juice and then trying to force kids to drink half pints of orange juice because it's very acidic and all that stuff. So we invented a product called J2O, which is a water-based juice product in a beer bottle with a lid on it. That is now I had to persuade my board colleagues, not once, not twice, but 3 times to keep it going. And that is now a £300 million brand and is sold in every pub in the UK, you know, in restaurants and whatever, because it's a range of very high quality fruit juice blends, which are, you know, they're not all sweet and there's an element to it, you know, passion fruit, whatever. So it's able to be drunk by men because it's out of a beer bottle, so you've got the image right. It's actually quite, it's not over sweet, it's refreshing and so on. Kids love it. So actually, parents are taking kids into, oh, I want a J2O. These things happen, but as you can tell, that took 10 years of my life. So these things don't happen overnight, but they do happen.
So who developed the name of the brand?
I did.
J2O.
Yeah.
What's yours idea?
Juice. Well, H2O being water.
Right.
J2O being juice and water. Juice and water, yeah. And again, at the time, I went, what? It's a bit intellectual, isn't it? No.
Right. Next question is from my hometown. The city. We never met actually. We didn't have a chance to visit Ivano-Frankivsk. I believe the channel is from Ivano-Frankivsk company producing plastic toys.
Oh, right, okay.
Selling those toys to 20 countries, but
okay.
Still not present in this market.
Yeah. I'd say toys is something that I find very scary. The market is, oh, sorry, I'm just having a quick sneak preview. Oh gosh, yes.
This is what we're talking about, basically.
Yeah, yes. One of the interesting business I'm involved in at the moment is an attractions business, and we run venues for ITV and so on. And our shops, they start to put toys in, but they weren't kids' toys. Well, they were kids' toys. And they, for example, were, you know, little ducks, little rubber ducks, whatever. And they started putting the ducks in, but they were related to the event. So in this venue, Mary King's Close, they put a plague doctor duck in it. In ITV, we have Coronation Street, 2 TV programs. We run both of their visitor centres. We put little ducks in for that. Would you believe that has now started a trend? People collect ducks, continuum ducks, adults, never mind kids.
And you know how much is the average duck now?
Oh, we probably sell them about 10 to 15 pounds.
30.
Yeah, 30 quid. Okay.
30 quid.
30 quid. I have no idea.
And more expensive.
Yeah. So I think, I mean, you've got bright and colourful, and that looks good. You've obviously got to, I'm sure you already have this as just perfectly normal, but obviously you've got to guarantee the quality of the plastic and any other issues. I have to say, I think it's very much design led. If people like the designs that you've got, then maybe that's, you know, why they're going to buy it. I don't think there's anything unique about the shaping of it or whatever. It's, and particularly if you can produce something that's unique for that particular retailer. If you're going the other way, which is your design's being sold in, then that again is different.
Can you name any major retailers for plastic toys, if you have any ideas?
Well, interestingly, you know, well, it's obviously Scandinavian. I mean, IKEA sell a lot of children's equipment. It's easy to sell if it's learning based. So there's a sort of kids' education thing in it. Otherwise, you're into, you know, a lot of kids now don't take stuff to school. They're limited by what they can take and so on. But if you can add a bit of excitement to that, but it's, I have to say, it's not an area I know enough about to give you strong advice.
Again, industry events, exhibitions,
oh, yeah.
Trade shows.
Yeah, but you basically, in so many cases, you're looking for people who are actively seeking those events. So, for example, Christmas shows and events, exhibitions usually take place in about February. I used to sell a lot of kiddish-shaped pasta, you know, with cartoons, and that might be from Disney or it might be from whatever. But the way that works is that those shows are on very early in the year, and retailers place their orders and manufacturers place their orders very early in the year. So Christmas shows typically in the UK are February, March time. And then of course you've got the lead in, because of course you have to be in store for probably end of October, certainly no later than the beginning of November. And in most retailers in this sort of category, maybe half, 30, 40, 50% of their sales are in that final quarter leading up to Christmas. So in some cases, Christmas could be 30+% of their volume.
Thank you. Another one.
That's right.
Right, so we have a manufacturing company, furniture production and interior decoration.
Gosh, furniture and interior decoration. Tough one. I'd have to know an awful lot more about the company really to give a view. There are lots of high street design-led retailers. If it's a design-led, is it B2B or is it B2C? If it's B2C, sorry, business to business or business to consumer. If it's business to consumer, that's a really tough market here because there's so much available. So that would be that. Then, sorry, that's not very helpful. I'm aware.
So next one.
SEO agents.
There's two questions.
Global language and legal support. So yes. Well, certainly you do the London Chamber of Commerce one yourself, because the answer would be yes.
Reading the second one.
Oh, right, okay. Okay, so this one is about a company that's providing a range of language services and non-regulated legal support, and they're helping a number of UK businesses. I mean, to be honest with you, that would be an absolute classic of getting involved in things like the Chamber of Commerce, Ukrainian business community. There are other companies, other people I know who are providing some of those services, and some of those services are Ukrainian-based support, but within large legal firms already. But I think the idea is that a lot of businesses won't know they need it until they go to their professional advisors. And it's probably working with the professional advisors like legal firms, making sure that the chambers of commerce know, because of course there are Ukrainian families relocated all over the UK. And of course there's the British Chambers of Commerce, which LCCI are part of and can help you with, where by advertising to them, because it's a sort of question that someone with a business will probably be in their Chamber of Commerce, ring them up and say, help. Well, make sure that they know that you know, what you're doing is there.
And I'll add a few bits. There are big independent online Ukrainian communities in UK, like Pora, I think it's called Pora. Then there is a London-based community called Network UA. You can check out different local communities in distant parts of UK, because Andrew mentioned that Ukrainians living all around the country, and I know there are communities more active than others, but again, hundreds or thousands of people around. This is the last one now.
Oh, right, sorry.
About SME CEO services for SMEs.
Yeah, I mean,
Sorry,
yeah.
Right, regarding the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry membership, or I believe you're asking about the membership. Yeah, it's open for any business from around the world. You can register online, go to our website, London Chamber UK, You can get a free membership, which is called LCSI Community Membership. You'll have access to all our events database. You'll have access to our community. In case you want to take some of the paid for services, there are other options available. But I will start from the free of charge membership for community. The community membership.
Yeah, I mean, as an agency, one of the things to consider, there are two organisations, trade bodies really. One's the Institute of Sales Promotion, which is now, sorry, I beg your pardon, it's now called the Institute of Promotional Marketing, of which I used to be president many years ago. So the IPM is the sort of organisation your agency could join because it's related to more sales promotion. But if you want a more agency orientated thing, there is the there's another one called the Institute of Practitioners in Advertising. But in London, there's also one for small agencies, and I can't think of its name. But I'll let Igor know what it is, so we can just have it. But so those sort of trade bodies now. The only benefit of the trade bodies is there you know what's going on. But people very often, when you've got agency headhunters, so they're trying to find agencies for clients, they will refer to the membership lists of those sort of organisations to find them. And certainly if you're able to deal with it multilingual sort of businesses and do the search engine optimization for them, that's also useful. Now, one thing I would say, and again, I used to be chairman of an SEO agency. We used to split our business clearly into two. The most important thing to us was online commercial. People are selling online, commercial products online, and they tend to be absolutely interested in this issue. Then there's other people who sort of interested in the issue, but the revenue came from online commercial dealers. You know, people are actually selling product online because they have to get it right, and they have to get it right consistently.
Thank you for this. Just in time.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So there are no more questions. In case anyone has some questions related to this event or other LCSI activities, or have any requests related to UK markets, you know my email now. Thank you for attending this webinar. Follow our announcements. Will be some more in the future, and hope to see you once again. Bye. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much, and I hope everything continues to go well.
Slava Ukraini.